Starting out in web development can be a daunting task because there are so many seemingly disconnected and non related packages that somehow come together to create large scale complex web apps. Throughout the years of growing as a web developer, I've come across packages that were straightforward at first glance and easy to incorporate into projects, while I've also ran into packages that made me scratch my head and ask, why would any sane human being want this in their project? The first package that made me ask that question and ask it for the longest time was Webpack. It's a package that any modern web application includes in its codebase. Finally, after years of loosely interacting with the package, months of finally realizing its true benefits, and weeks of sitting down and fully understanding the package's basics, I can comfortably answer the question of why we use it. Hello, I'm Gemma, and today I'll be showing the basics of Webpack to help you all understand the purpose of this glorious package. First, I'll explain what Webpack is, and walk through a small project that doesn't use Webpack, and finally incorporate the package in the project with a configuration file and using the recommended asset management system by the Webpack package itself. By the end of this video, you should feel a little bit more comfortable with how to actually use the package. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Alright, let's get to work. So what is Webpack and how does it actually work? According to the site, it's an open source module bundler for JavaScript that aims to bundle all of a project's assets, including images, styles, dependencies, and more into static files that can be easily consumed by the browser. Webpack is basically turning your modular project into something similar to the famous smush dish, trash can nachos. There are so many separate ingredients that are helpful or tasty, but when they all come together or bundled up, they make something way better. This is all great for developers since we can spend less time managing our dependencies and more time writing code, and I guess also eating nachos. But this makes a lot more sense when we see all of this in action. So I created a super small project that showcases 3 of my favorite artists. The first project includes 3 images, a style sheet, a JavaScript file, and an HTML file for everything to come together. You can think of the HTML file as the metal trash can that holds the nachos or the code together. Inside the index.html file, I'm including the Lodash package that I'm not currently using but will later come in handy when we convert the project. When I was writing this project, I was already feeling the tedious nature of organizing and setting up a project without Webpack. The moment I want to include more pages, images, style sheets, or JavaScript logic, managing all of these moving pieces is going to become pure madness. So let's take the time to walk through how you can convert a simple project like this one to start using Webpack. First things first, we've got to set this project up with npm by running npm init. After that, I'll install Webpack and Webpack CLI so I have access to functions provided by the package in my command line. Last thing we have to do for setup is to reorganize our project. Let's move all of our files inside a newly created directory called src or source. We're doing this because Webpack automatically looks for our source code in the source directory, which makes a lot of sense. Then, let's create the directory dist or distribution. This is where all of our bundled files will be stored. We can't forget to move our index.html file in this directory, or else it won't have access to our newly bundled images or other assets. Now that we've got Webpack at our disposal, let's start bundling our project. Let's change the index.html file so that it's no longer importing the Lodash package and importing the soon-to-be-produced bundled file, main.js. Let's also not forget to include Lodash as a package through npm. We can now bundle our project with the command npx webpack. We should see the file main.js pop up in our project. If we look inside the file, we'll see a lot of extra code that we actually didn't write. This is Webpack finding all the files that it's told to handle and then bundling them into a single file, which then will get imported by index.html. Sweet, let's take a look at the project in the browser by opening the index.html file. It may not look it, but we're running a project that's bundled. It doesn't really feel like a bundled project though, because the only thing that's technically being bundled is our empty JavaScript file with no functionality. So let's change that by writing some JavaScript. Before we do so, let's remove the HTML inside the body tag and the link tag for our style sheet. We're going to rewrite all of this using the JavaScript web API. Alright, bear with me, but I'm going to type up quite a bit of code. I'll start off by importing the package Lodash, which is an amazing library that makes handling objects in JavaScript so much easier by using declarative programming. After that, I'm creating an array named creatives that includes a name and image property for each person that I'll present in my site. Because I saw each creative as a type of component or class, it made the most sense to create a function named creative that takes in one argument, but later internally destructures out the name and image variables. Inside the function, I create 3 DOM elements, one image, one header, and a container to hold those 2 elements. I create the argument image to the newly created image DOM element source property, and then I'll assign the argument name to the inner text property of the header. At the end, I put the image and the header inside the container element and return that container. I then create a new DOM element that's an h1 or the highest section header element. This will be the title of the page. I'll also create another div element that will hold all of the creative elements. I attach the class creatives container so that element will use that class in my predefined style sheet. Finally, I use Lodash by calling the for each function on the array of creatives and defining a callback that will create a new creative element and append it to the creatives container. Whew, okay, that was a lot, but we should be all caught up. Let's bundle our project again and refresh the web page. Alright, so we don't have any images. On top of that, our page low-key looks kind of nasty, but no worries. This is only happening because we didn't instruct Webpack to handle assets like images and style sheets, so let's fix that. To address the lack of styling, let's include the packages style loader and CSS loader. We'll create a Webpack configuration file called webpack.config.js, and the idea of this configuration file is actually really similar to Babel or ESLint. I've copied in some unfamiliar boilerplate instructions, but these are actually the instructions that were being followed when we used npx webpack in the command line. So let's take a closer look at the configuration file. Since we haven't deployed the project, we're in development mode, and the entry key is actually the file that Webpack will first look at to start looking for all associated dependencies. And the output key defines what the name of the bundled file will be and where it'll actually live. So inside this file, we'll add a rule in the rule section under the module section. In the test key, we'll use a regular expression or regex phrase that looks for any file that ends with the CSS extension. In the use key, we'll reference the packages style loader and CSS loader. I'll handle the style sheets in our project. Let's import our style sheet inside our index.js file, and then we'll bundle our project one more time. Amazing, our site is looking nice. To take bundling assets a step further, we could also handle images. Let's install the package file loader. Now let's add another rule in the rule section in the configuration file. This time, we're looking for all types of images using the file loader package. Now in index.js, instead of having strings for the image variable, we'll actually be able to import each image and then pass those imports inside the variable, which will be assigned to the source property. So let's bundle our project one more time. This is just a better approach with dealing with assets as a project might grow. Alright, a lot happened, so let's take a quick step back and understand what we did and why we did it. Originally, all my images, my style sheet, and the one package that I was using were all living in the HTML file. This wasn't a great foundation for a project, just because handling dynamic information in the HTML file is such a pain. So we've decided to move all the logic of importing packages, styles, and creating DOM components into our JavaScript file. With this new approach of organizing our project, new problems arise, and there are a lot of packages that have been created to solve these new issues. For example, React is a front-end framework that aims to streamline the interaction of using the web API. Its main goal is to abstract away a lot of the tedious actions that have to be taken to make a DOM element or some animations or any expected user interaction. So now that everything is being handled in JavaScript files, the task of managing, organizing, and changing assets and logic becomes a lot more sustainable and easier to manage. That's all for this one. If you enjoyed what you saw, like the video and subscribe. I'm posting videos every other week, so if there's a specific topic that you want me to cover on this channel, just leave it down in the comment section below. I'll see y'all in the next video.